Good day, viewers! Today, we are going to discuss the three periods of the history of English language, namely Old English, Middle English, and lastly, the Modern English. Alright, let's begin! The English language belongs to the West Germanic branch of the Indo-European family of languages. The closest undoubted living relatives of English are Scots and Frisian. Frisian is a language spoken by approximately 500,000 of people in the Dutch province of Friesland, in nearby areas of Germany, and on a few islands in the North Sea. That English is a Germanic language and can easily be perceived by comparing it to German, Dutch, and Frisian, all West Germanic languages. The word water is common to English and Dutch, and other words are not very different in the two languages. The relation between English, that is good, and German, das ist gut, is evident. Historically, modern English is the result of a number of tribal migrations and iterations. Before the first of these, the linguistic ancestors of English-speaking people were wandering along the northern coast of Europe, using Low West Germanic dialects so similar to one another that members of the various tribes could understand one another. The history of the English language has traditionally been divided into three main periods: Old English, 450 to 1100 AD, Middle English, circa 1100 to 1500 AD, and Modern English, since 1500. Over the centuries, the English language has been influenced by a number of other languages. About the middle of the 5th century AD, three Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, began a successful invasion of what is now England, or a mass migration into it. The gradual fusion of their three dialects resulted in Old English or Anglo-Saxon. The word English was in Old English, Englisk, and that comes from the names of the Angles. The Angles were named from Angle, their land of origin. By the end of the 6th century, the former inhabitants of England, the Celts, had been killed, driven into Wales, or enslaved, and the Anglo-Saxons were securely established. English held sway in England. Only some place names and a few ordinary words of the Celts remained. Before the Saxons, the language spoken in what is now England was a mixture of Latin and various Celtic languages, which were spoken before the Romans came to Britain, 54 to 55 BC. The Romans brought Latin to Britain, which was part of the Roman Empire for over 400 years. Many of the words passed on from this era are those coined by Roman merchants and soldiers. These include wine or wine, candle or candle, belt remains belt, and wheel for war. The influence of Celtic upon Old English was slight. In fact, very few Celtic words have lived on in the English language, but many of place and river names have Celtic origins, such as Kent, York, Dover, Cumberland, Thames, Avon, Trent, and Severn. Another but peaceful invasion was that of Latin, which began in 597 AD, when the Roman missionary Saint Augustine arrived in England and converted the Kingdom of Kent to Christianity. Thus began an influence that has continued to enrich English through Latin borrowings. They were mostly concerned with the naming of church dignitaries, ceremonies, and others. Some, such as church, bishop, baptism, monk, Eucharist, and curbstone, came indirectly through Latin from the around 878 AD. Danes and Norsemen, also called as Vikings, invaded the country. Their language gradually merged with the related Anglo-Saxon dialects, and a great deal of interchange and borrowings of words occurred. Raids by the Danes continued throughout the 10th century, and in the early years of the 11th century, Danish kings actually reigned in England. The linguistic consequence of the Viking invasion was a considerable injection of Scandinavian words into English. The Vikings, being Scandinavian, spoke a language called Old Norse, which in origin at least was just as Germanic as Old language. Words derived from Norse include sky, egg, cake, skin, leg, window or wind-eye, husband, fellow, skill, anger, flat, odd, ugly, gift, give, take, raise, call, die, and the pronouns they, their, and their. Several written works have survived from the English period. The most famous is a heroic poem called Beowulf. Did you know that Beowulf is the oldest known English poem and it is notable for its length, 3,183 lines? Experts say that Beowulf was written in Britain more than 1,000 years ago. The name of the person who wrote it is unknown.
William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, invaded and conquered England in 1066 AD with his armies and became king. He brought his nobles, who spoke French, to be the new government. The Old French took over as the language of the court, administration, and culture. Latin was mostly used for written language, especially that of the church. Meanwhile, the English language, as the language of the now lower class, was considered a vulgar tongue. By about 1200, England and France had split. English changed a lot because it was mostly being spoken instead of written for about 300 years. The use of Old English came back, but with many French words added. This language is called Middle English. Most of the words embedded in English vocabulary are words of power, such as crown, castle, court, parliament, army, mansion, gown, beauty, banquet, art, poet, romance, duke, servant, peasant, trader, and governor. Because the English underclass cooked for the Norman upper class, the words for most domestic animals are English. Examples are ox, cow, calf, sheep, swine, and deer, while the words for the meats derived from them are French. Examples are beef, veal, mutton, pork, bacon, and venison. The Middle English is also characterized for the beginning of the Great Vowel Shift. It was a massive sound change affecting the long vowels of English. Basically, the long vowels shifted upwards. That is, a vowel that used to be pronounced in one place in the mouth would be pronounced in a different place, higher up in the mouth. The Great Vowel Shift occurred during the 15th to 18th centuries. Did you know that the most famous example of Middle English is Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales? It is a collection of stories about a group of 30 people who travel as pilgrims to Canterbury, England. The portraits that he paints in his tales give us an idea of what life was like in 14th century England.
After William Caxton established his printing press at Westminster Abbey in 1476, Johann Gutenberg invented the printing press in Germany around 1450. But Caxton set up England's first press. The Bible and some valuable manuscripts were printed. The invention of the printing press made books available to more people. The books became cheaper and more people learned to read. Printing also brought standardization to English. By the time of Shakespeare's writing around 1592 to 1616, the language had become clearly recognizable as modern English. There were three big developments in the world at the beginning of the modern English period: the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and the British colonialism. It was during the English Renaissance that most of the words from Greek and Latin entered English. This period in English cultural history, early 16th century to the early 17th century, is sometimes referred to as the Age of Shakespeare or the Elizabethan era, taking the name of the English Renaissance most famous author and most important monarch respectively. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, there was an explosion of culture in the form of support of the arts, popularization of the printing press, and massive amounts of sea travel. England began the Industrial Revolution during 18th century, and this had also an effect on the development of the language as new words had to be invented or existing once modified to cope with the rapid changes in technology. New technical words were added to the vocabulary as inventors designed various products and machinery. These words were named after the inventor or given the name of their choice, such as trains, engine, pulleys, combustion, electricity, telephone, telegraph, camera, etc. Britain was an empire for 200 years between the 18th and 20th centuries, and English language continued to change as the British Empire moved across the world to the USA, Australia, New Zealand, India, Asia, and Africa. They sent people to settle and live in their conquered places, and as settlers interacted with natives, new words were added to the English vocabulary. For example, kangaroo and boomerang are native Australian Aborigine words. Juggernaut and turban came from India. English continues to change and develop, with hundreds of new words arriving every year. But even with all the borrowing from many other languages, the heart of the English language remains the Anglo-Saxon of all English. The grammar of English is also distinctly Germanic three genders, the he, she, and it, and a simple set of verb tenses. So that would be all for the history of English. Thank you and see you next time!
Kami naman alam mo na, naulan pa naman ngayon.
Ha?
Ang pagbuhay.
Baby shark!
Okay na. Alright, let's begin. Sana may nag-move, ano? I imagine